The very first African Social Media Influencer Summit is underway here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the diplomatic heartbeat of the continent. This landmark event has brought together prominent digital voices from across Africa, engaging in vibrant discussions about reshaping the continent's narrative. As a part of the summit, participants have been exploring Addis Ababa's most iconic sites. This morning, they visited the Ethiopian Artificial Intelligence Institute, the Gulele Women Injera Entrepreneurs Initiative, the Riverside Project, and the Adwa Victory Memorial Museum. Later in the afternoon, their journey continued with tours of Addis Ababa International Convention Center and Made in Ethiopia Expo. Hello and welcome once again. I am Zelalem Ibeltal alongside my colleague Gamachsa Mandida. Stay tuned. Gamachsa African Social Media Influencer Summit has just been kicked off this morning in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and social media influencers from across Africa are engaging in this super important continental summit, African Social Media Influencer Summit. This is a historic moment for social media influencers, and of course, this is phenomenal for African narratives. You know, the whole idea of organizing this continental summit, African Social Media Influencer Summit, is to shape and reshape the continent's Africa's narrative, isn't it? And this summit is, of course, organized by Pulse of Africa and AGA. Both organizations are Pan-African organizations dedicated to present and represent the interests of the continent Africa. And we are very much proud as Pulse of Africa to co-organize African Social Media Influencer Summit, the first of its kind. Pulse of Africa, as we know, is a Pan-African media institution dedicated to the voice of Africa, the face and voice of Africa. Pulse of Africa was established a few months ago, and it was inaugurated by the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed. And over the past few months, Pulse of Africa has been able to get millions, hundreds of thousands of followers, both in Facebook, in YouTube, and other social media platforms as well. And we do kindly ask our audience to follow and subscribe our page on Facebook, on YouTube as well. African Social Media Influencer Summit, you know, the influencers have been visiting various sites, and this afternoon they visited Addis Ababa International Convention Center. And Addis Ababa International Convention Center is one of the biggest conference center in Addis Ababa, which has the capacity to host more than 2,000 attendees, participants at a time. And one of the things that signifies and that increase the prominence and significance of Addis Ababa city as a city is, you know, the prominence in the existence of conference centers such as Addis Ababa International Conference Center, Addis Ababa International Convention Center, and African Social Media Influencers this afternoon visited this iconic site as well. Gamet.
Yes, Zelalem, excuse me. Addis Ababa International Convention Center is one of the best places in Addis Ababa that you need to go and visit. Well, it's a conference center, of course. I just had, some chances, to go over and see what it looks like to be there. And I observed, interesting things. For example, the hotels there are a five-star hotel. And also it is situated, on a large piece of land, plot of land, and it allows especially foreign direct investors or investors from abroad to come to Ethiopia and play their peculiar roles in enhancing, import substitution in the country. Ethiopia needs this kind of thing. Import substitution is something that the Ethiopian government needs badly, because Africa, Ethiopia and Africa in general need economic sovereignty, and this can be, of course, realized by having, just this kind of center, such a center. So Addis Ababa International Convention Center is the property of the people, Ethiopians, I could say, because they have taken part in the building of that site. And you can go and just be part, so that you will play a peculiar role. You can have some share there. Why is it so important? Because the Ethiopian government is committed to substitute imports and become, be able to provide, a situation where people are invited to play their roles as contributors for the country's economic development. And having this international convention center is very good. It invites people, especially investors from across Africa and the global, from the rest of the world, and it really plays a big role, I would say.
Yeah. Now we are looking African social media influencers at Addis Ababa International Convention Center, and they are being participated at Ethiopian coffee ceremony there. Ethiopia is known for coffee. Ethiopian coffee is prominent across the world, and Ethiopian coffee ceremony is part of Ethiopian culture, and they are being served there, as you can see. And this is Addis Ababa International Convention Center. It is beautiful and a magnificent building, a very huge building. Like I said before, it has a capacity to host more than 2,000 attendees at a time. It's a huge building, and we remember that, for example, over the last few months, Addis Ababa International Convention Center hosted major international conferences. For example, Italy-Africa Summit has been conducted here at Addis Ababa International Convention Center. And African Climate Summit has also been conducted here. We do remember that Ethiopia also hosted African Climate Summit. Ethiopia has been recognized for its climate mitigation activity, and over the past 7 years, for example, Ethiopia has been able to plant more than 48 billion trees, and Ethiopia's climate mitigation activity is phenomenal, and it has got the recognition of international organizations. And of course, Ethiopia is going to host COP32 by 2027, and Ethiopia's significant stride in terms of global climate change activity is recognized. Now what we are exactly looking is African social media influencers visit at Addis Ababa International Convention Center. We can see it is very much colorful and beautiful, and our reporters are also there. Pulse of Africa journalists are there with African social media influencers, and they're gonna bring us their impression later. And as a part of their visit at Addis Ababa International Convention Center, African social media influencers are also visiting Made in Ethiopia Expo. Made in Ethiopia Expo is an initiative that's to initiate Ethiopian manufacturers to manufacture products for export. Much of the history of Ethiopia, much of the history of Africa is associated with importing processed products from across the world. Africa as a continent has huge potential, huge capacity in utilizing resources, in processing goods, in processing products, and in exporting and getting benefit out of the export. But we as Africans are exporting raw materials, and we are importing processed goods and products from across the world, and this has a huge negative impact, I would say, in Africa's trade balance. The export and import balance, we can see huge gap between export and import. Africans are importing a lot, but exporting the export and import balance in African countries, we can see a huge gap. Africans are importing a lot, while they are not exporting processed products and goods. So Made in Ethiopia initiative can be taken and considered as an initiative to initiate Africans, to initiate Ethiopians to process products, to manufacture products and export, and getting benefit out of that. And the benefits of Made in Ethiopia Expo, Made in Ethiopia initiative is not limited to getting foreign exchange. For example, the manufacturing companies in Ethiopia are also creating huge opportunity, job opportunity for youths. We know that Ethiopia is a country of youth, like Africa as a continent. Africa is also defined by its burgeoning youth population. So it's highly imperative for African governments, for African stakeholders to engage the society, to engage the youth in manufacturing by creating job opportunity like this one. So the African social media influencers will take a lesson from this. Yes, this is one of the visit, and the Made in Ethiopia Expo will also encourage skill and technology transfer, knowledge transfer. For example, the youth who are engaged in Made in Ethiopia Expo will incur lesson, will obtain lesson from this Made in Ethiopia Expo, and this could also be another lesson for Africans, and this could be quite a lesson for African social media influencers to take and to promote and to propagate to the rest of African society.
Yes, Zalalam. Well, it is very much well known that Africa is endowed with natural resources. If we just go back a few months and remember from the African Union Summit, the 29th African Union Summit, during that time, African leaders unanimously made a decision, which is of course, to value add to their natural resources and then export them. So the continent, benefits out of it. Many countries many companies, from abroad come to Africa, and they, of course, focus on extracting the resources. And they cannot establish, industries, factories here, for a variety of reasons, and one of them is, of course, they don't have just such a center that allows investors from across the continent and the rest of the globe, the rest of the continent, to come to Ethiopia or any African country and then think about how they go about investing. But this time, the facilities, as you might have observed earlier, I hope you've paid a visit to this center.
Yes,
previously, and you see it is a package. I mean, it has everything that say an investor might need to stay in Ethiopia and then deal with say government officials or colleagues who are in the field of manufacturing, who are investors like one of them. So these facilities are provided by the Ethiopian government so that factories and industries can be, established in the country. And when this happens, when these facilities are, of course, provided, then the country will be able to set, factories, industries that, as you said earlier, offer job opportunities for the youth. And because the center didn't exist, back in the years, investors, coming from abroad were in difficulty to deal with appropriate government officials to discuss, how they could be, investing in the country. So this center is very significant, very much significant, and it is not just a center for Ethiopia, but we can say it is a center for the whole Africa, because Ethiopia is, a gate, and investors could come from, the Middle East, for example. They could come from the rest of Africa, and they meet here to talk about how they will be able to invest more in the country, and they can have, just people to talk to, even though they have citizenship elsewhere. Okay, they can find, people, say, similar investors in Addis Ababa as a seat of African Union, the African Union. Investors from abroad can find, investors who reside in Ethiopia, possibly, who can work together. So this center is very important, not only for Ethiopia, but for the rest of Africans as well. This is, a place where they can meet and talk about business, talk about enhancing the manufacturing industry, investing more. Especially import substitution is something that we cannot ignore, especially these days. For example, the recent Middle East crisis teaches a lesson to Africa. The fact that, Africans must be able to start, to be self-reliant. Okay, well, we are dependent for imports, say for example oil. Okay, we are dependent on other countries for imports of machineries, for example. But how about, we find, ways to manufacture them here? Okay, if we want to do that, then you need to invite, for example, people from other countries to come to Ethiopia and invest, and then, start manufacturing them here. And this center allows, people to come together and then discuss, as I said earlier, business matters. And
exactly,
it's so important.
Yes, viewers, you are watching our Pulse of Africa's live stream, which focus on African Social Media Influencer Summit ASMIS 2026. Do subscribe our page, YouTube and Facebook page. Yes, Gamach, Addis Ababa International Convention Center is being visited by African social media influencers, and alongside their visit, they have been participating in Ethiopian coffee ceremony. Coffee is everything for Ethiopians.
Yes.
For example, before we sit down for this important discussion, we had some coffee, yeah?
Of course, we did.
Yeah. Every Ethiopians, almost we can say every Ethiopians enjoy coffee ceremony. But beyond that enjoyment, beyond that cultural value, coffee is also bloodline for Ethiopian economy. The majority of Ethiopia's foreign exchange income generated from coffee, and Ethiopia is also the birthplace of coffee. And international visitors, international investors, foreigners enjoyed Ethiopian coffee and they admired Ethiopian coffee. And I remember some 3-4 years ago, I went to London for a scholarship, and I had the opportunity and privilege to visit BBC headquarters in London at Great Portland Street. And fortunately, I met my role model then, Steven Sacker. He was producer of Hard Talk. Now he is no longer producing that important program, Hard Talk. He has retired from BBC. But then we met, and he took me to a cafeteria nearby BBC headquarters, and he invited me a coffee, and it was, super powerful coffee, and asked him what coffee it is. I mean, he replied, it's Ethiopian coffee. We imported this from Ethiopia. And I was very much encouraged by Ethiopian coffee export. And Ethiopian coffee is known everywhere, whether you go to Middle East or Europe or America or China, one of the important foreign exchange commodity and item for Ethiopia is coffee. And it's great that African social media influencers are enjoying Ethiopian coffee alongside Ethiopian coffee ceremony. Let's take some short break, and we're going to be back to share other updates and perspectives regarding African Social Media Influencer Summit ASMIS 2026. Stay tuned.
Something powerful is already happening. Over 200 content creators sitting together, aligning, questioning.
Deciding what Africa's digital future should actually look like.
Because this isn't just about content anymore.
It's about direction.
Millions of followers and millions of eyes.
Now moving with shared purpose.
Stories are being shaped with intention.
Narratives are being clarified.
Agendas are being defined.
Because when Africa speaks in fragments,
It gets misunderstood.
But when it moves together,
It becomes undeniable.
what's happening here doesn't stay here. It reaches the world. This is the African Social Media Influencer Summit.
Yeah, you have been watching African social media influencers' beautiful and productive visit to Addis Ababa's most important iconic places. For example, African social media influencers visited Ethiopian Artificial Intelligence Institute Riverside Project and Adwa Victory Memorial Museum, Addis Ababa International Convention Center, and Made in Ethiopia Expo. And the next destination is expected to be their visit at Ethiopian Sport Park. Different, more than 200 social media influencers have come to Addis Ababa. Let me mention some of the influencers from Africa. Tenge Tenge of Uganda, Wodi Maya of Ghana, Delish Matthew of Namibia, Zero Brainer of Tanzania, William Last of Botswana, Adonai of Ethiopia, Brain Jota of Nigeria, and many other social media influencers from across Africa are here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to discuss on the ways of reshaping African narratives. And as a part of the summit this morning and afternoon as well, these social media influencers have been visiting many iconic places. Gamachis earlier on, we have been discussing on their visit regarding Addis Ababa International Convention Center and their enjoyment at Ethiopian coffee ceremony. And, you know, off the record, you were telling me about your experience of travel experience in Nairobi and Dakar as well. Let us share this experience to the audience, in particular your experience of coffee and things like that.
Well, Ethiopian coffee is among best of the best, I can say, and I think everybody knows that. And for you, surprise, when I paid a visit to Nairobi and Dakar, I came across, you know, a very special encounter where the people there, I just entered, you know, a coffee house, and I found Ethiopian coffee, well, the one, you know, exported from Ethiopia to these coffee houses in both Dakar and Nairobi. And I asked them, you know, how they happen to import, you know, just that Ethiopian coffee, and they said the aroma, the taste of Ethiopian coffee is of highest standard, and they consider it to be, you know, a standard for the coffee they serve there. And I enjoyed it. Truly speaking, you know, I don't drink coffee very often, but I do drink. But I'm not fond of it very much, but I like it actually. But as they said it was surprisingly a first time for me, you know, to encounter an export standard Ethiopian coffee. And I realized again, it was unique to the one I've been drinking. I had been drinking, you know, in the country. And that just gave me a lesson that, of course, the standard Ethiopian, the export standard Ethiopian coffee is unique in its very taste and its very aroma.
Of course, there are varieties of Ethiopian coffee species, and
yes,
I mean, you may get the one that's powerful. Yeah,
of course, some of them are fruity and they have floral aromas. Some others taste like wine, okay, and they have, you know, multi-dimensional tasting experience. People have multi-dimensional tasting experience with Ethiopian coffee, and ever since, you know, my encounter in Dakar and Nairobi regarding the Ethiopian export standard coffee, I just came back to Ethiopia. When I came back to Ethiopia, I started to search for the same quality coffee in the country, and I realized that, of course, as people said, Ethiopian coffee is unique and it's very taste. And and truly speaking, that coffee, I believe, is not very much known to the public at large, because it is far-fetched, and really it tells exactly the Ethiopian export standard coffee is really unique in its very taste.
Yes, you know, coffee for Ethiopia is, you know, everything. Like I said before, coffee for Ethiopia is culture. Ethiopians enjoy coffee ceremony. Coffee for Ethiopia is its economy. You know, Ethiopia earns billions of dollars from exports of coffee, and coffee for Ethiopia is, you know, source of, you know, job opportunity. I mean, millions, tens of millions of Ethiopians are engaged in coffee as well. So coffee for Ethiopia is, you know, bloodline. Let us discuss on African social media influencers visit to a sport park. You know, Addis Ababa recently in particular is very much known in its sport park. You know, in the prior days, what Addis Ababa had lacked was sport park. You know, you could enjoy and you could see bustling cities of Addis Ababa, but in reality Addis Ababa was hungered of sports parks. But recently, in particular, alongside Addis Ababa corridor development, we have encountered the proliferation, the increment of sports parks in the city, and that's very much essential for the residents of the city. I mean, residents of Addis Ababa can go to sports parks and can enjoy sports parks and can have a little exercise there and can, you know, sustain healthy and active life.
Zalalam, you remind me a very important point about sports, the significance of sports centers. Back in the years, you know, in America, cities had sports centers where everybody, we could say, not limited with age, everybody would go to those centers and sports centers and exercise, because authorities during that time, you know, just believed that sport really maintains the health of citizens. So wherever you have, you know, schools, they have, you know, fields to exercise, fields to play, playgrounds, you know, for example, for various sports activities. Say boys, you know, play football, girls play volleyball, etc. And they really knew, they really understood what sports gives to citizens, especially to young people. If you want your people to live longer, then you engage them, you know, in sports activities. And when you have, you know, more sports sites like the one you mentioned now, which is, you know, the sports park, people will have the opportunity to go to these sports and then, you know, exercise, engage in various games. And obviously this is going to give them, you know, good health. And especially in 21st century, where our our eating habits are changing, then we need to find, you know, some way to burn, you know, what we eat. And the significance of these sports activities to enhance, you know, good health is really very, very great. So if you just, you know, look back to records and see for yourself, you learn that the Ethiopian government has been establishing these playgrounds here and there in the city, and this allows, you know, young people especially, you know, to engage in games, in football, in anything that really allows them to do exercise, physical exercise, and that really maintains, you know, just their health. So sports activities, sport sites are not, you know, luxury for citizens. They are very necessary things. And the fact that, you know, the Ethiopian government is giving more attention to sports centers is, you know, a very good thing. And influencers, you know, as they visit these places, I do hope that they learn its significance.
Exactly. Yes, you know, as you rightly and interestingly elaborated on, you know, sport parks are not a luxury for the society. I mean, you know, the residents of Addis Ababa really deserve a dignified life, a healthy life, and such kind of sports parks will allow them to live a healthy and active life. You know, currently we are encountering and we are witnessing the increment of non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, stroke, heart attack, and other non-communicable diseases. And most of these diseases are lack of healthy life, lack of active life, lack of exercise, and the fact that Addis Ababa is transforming in terms of this kind of sport parks is a good opportunity and it's good news for the residents of the city. And African social media influencers are visiting the city. You know, I think they have had a productive time today. They have started the 2026 African Social Media Influencers Summit today, and it's going to continue tomorrow as well, May 7 and May 8, 2026. So African social media influencers will share their impression of the city as well. I mean, Addis Ababa is transforming in many ways. Addis Ababa enjoyed infrastructure, huge infrastructure, road, railway, airway as well. We can talk and we can mention Ethiopian Airlines, which is the biggest airlines in the continent, which is the pride of Ethiopia, the pride of Africa. Ethiopian Airlines, in fact, has been connecting countries of Africa for so long. Over the past many decades, Ethiopian Airlines has been serving Africans, to connect, to integrate with the rest of the world. So the transformation of Addis Ababa has been visited by African social media influencers, but the main purpose is to give them a glimpse to Africa, because we said that Ethiopia, Addis Ababa in particular, is the political and diplomatic heartbeat of the continent. African social media influencers will also engage in substantive discussion among themselves regarding the ways of reshaping the narratives of Africa, and that's the very purpose. By the way, this 2026 African Social Media Influencer Summit has been organized by Pulse of Africa and AGA, and of course there are numerous contributors who contributed for the success of this important continental summit, and we're going to mention the contributors later. But these two organizations of AGA Enterprise and Pulse of Africa have organized the 2026 African Social Media Influencer Summit, the first of its kind, and we feel very much proud to be part of this phenomenal continental event, Pulse of Africa, as Pulse of Africa. And we kindly ask our viewers to follow and subscribe our page on Facebook and on YouTube as well. So Gamaj, the narratives of Africa, let us return a little bit back to our discussion, and let us share and entertain ideas regarding the narratives of Africa, because tomorrow they're going to sit down to share experience and knowledge and exposure regarding ways of shaping the narratives of Africa, the understanding of Africa. When these influencers are living in their respective countries, and when they do not have exposure of other African countries, their understanding of Africa is going to be limited. And organizing such kind of continental summit is, important, crucial in terms of, enhancing experience sharing. For example, yesterday, Sierra Leone influencers were here at Pulse of Africa studio, and they told us that this is the first time to come to Ethiopia, and they were amazed very much by what they saw in Addis Ababa. And this shouldn't be like their first experience. I mean, they should come to Ethiopia more often. Ethiopia is the diplomatic center of the continent, and Africa needs to unlock. African countries need to unlock. Need to integrate each other. It shouldn't be a big deal, for example, for Ethiopian influencers to go to Morocco and to enjoy beaches of Morocco. And it shouldn't be trouble for Ugandan influencers to go to Johannesburg and to enjoy the beauty of Johannesburg. I mean, we need to be integrated. There is also a platform, there is initiative that encourage African countries to integrate with each other, African Continental Free Trade Area, and the major objective of that initiative is, of course, to integrate and to connect Africa through trade and economy. And that kind of initiative is very much essential for African countries to integrate with each other. We need to think as one. The inspiration and the vision of our forefathers, such as Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, and other forefathers, was to see a united Africa and to call Africa as a United States of Africa, where 54 countries of Africa come to one. See, for example, the United States of America. The strength is behind United States of America is their unity. Different and distinct states come together and they establish United States of America, and that country has become the most powerful, at least one of the most powerful country on earth. So it is very much imperative for Africa to integrate with each other, and platforms like this one, African Social Media Influencer, will have a pivotal role in bringing Africans together and in charting a new chapter together.
Well, Zelalem, yes, I agree with you, absolutely. In the past years, just let's go back and try to examine how previous empires, how they acted to unify, for example, Europe. The Roman Empire, had military capabilities, and of course, it marched to various European countries to conquer respective nations, and then to establish the Roman Empire, to come out and then to unify them just by force, compelling respective countries. But unfortunately, that didn't work very much. We know that eventually the Roman Empire collapsed. Now we clearly see that the motivation for these nations under the Roman Empire were forced to come together. Now, when it comes to Africa, you need to give Africans, a very good reason to unite. And influencers, social media influencers, play their role, their peculiar role here. Now, as you said earlier, as influencers, African influencers can move from one country to another, from their countries to another country, and then they will be able to see the good things in these countries, just they visit, and they go back to their respective countries, they return and talk about, just these opportunities. And now the respective countries, will, can, for example, want to integrate economically, socially, and culturally. Now, my point is, you make this unification of Africa or integration of African countries motivated intrinsically from within. Just they need to see how each of them can support one another, how they can contribute for the development of the other, and then, for example, they can have a platform where they lay ground to do that.
Exactly.
Okay, so the role influencers, social media influencers play here is so huge, so big. They play really, peculiar roles. Look, they visited these important spots in Addis Ababa, and then upon their arrival in their respective countries, they talk about them. And the people there could have, interest about, these spots in Addis Ababa and the opportunities to collaborate, in trade, for example, in investment. And perception matters. And we're talking about, having a good perception about Africa. And the role the influencers play here is very much important.
Exactly.
Now, they can convince, for example, an investor, okay, to come to Ethiopia and invest, because, when they see the favorable conditions for investment, they report it to the right people in their countries. Now, those people can come to Ethiopia, and at the same time, Ethiopians will have, a chance to see the potential of people in the countries of these influences, to invite them, okay, to bring them to Ethiopia and then engage in economic activities, in investments.
Absolutely, governments. Yeah, recently it has become very much fashionable for African scholars, for African politicians, for African leaders to come to the podium and to speak like Africa must be united, Africa needs to be prosperous, Africa needs to be flourished, Africa has such kind of potential, this potential, that potential. But we need to translate that speech to action, and this is exactly what has been done in Addis Ababa today. Pulse of Africa and AGA Enterprise has organized African Social Media Influencers Summit, and that has brought together more than 200 influencers from across Africa, and it has created an awesome opportunity for influencers to meet each other, to network each other, and to influence together. The unity of Africa is expressed within Africans, isn't it? So African Social Media Influencers influencers today have been visiting many places, many iconic places in Addis Ababa, and earlier on they have been visiting Addis Ababa International Convention Center. And Gametis, let us take a look at their visit at Addis Ababa International Convention Center, and we're gonna come back to share other information.
Something powerful is already happening. Over 200 content creators sitting together, aligning, questioning.
Deciding what Africa's digital future should actually look like.
Because this isn't just about content anymore.
It's about direction.
Millions of followers and millions of eyes.
Now moving with shared purpose.
Stories are being shaped with intention.
Narratives are being clarified.
Agendas are being defined.
Because when Africa speaks in fragments,
It gets misunderstood.
But when it moves together,
It becomes undeniable.
what's happening here doesn't stay here. It reaches the world. This is the African Social Media Influencer Summit.
Welcome to the Pulse of Africa, your gateway to Africa's vibrant stories, voices, and visions. Join us every Monday and Wednesday for POA in Depth, where we provide sharp analysis of pressing current affairs, keeping you informed and engaged. Tuesdays feature the Africa We Want, dedicated to the African Union's Agenda 2063, discover Africa's journey toward a prosperous and integrated future. On Thursdays, tune into El Dorado, highlighting Africa's rich natural resources and how they can drive true prosperity. Fridays bring you Roundup, where seasoned journalists discuss enduring issues shaping our continent's destiny. Saturdays showcase the editorial, offering Pulse of Africa's perspective on Africa's challenges and opportunities, and celebrate the notables, recognizing remarkable Africans making a difference. And don't forget, Sundays are for Africa Melody, honoring our culture, music, and entertainment. So tune into the Pulse of Africa and experience the vitality of our continent every day of the week. Subscribe now. More than 200 social media influencers from across Africa have been gathered here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the political and diplomatic heartbeat of the continent. And they are gathered here for a single yet a powerful, big purpose, and that's to shape and reshape the narratives of Africa. This super important continental summit, African Social Media Influencer Summit 2026, ASMIS 2026, has been organized by Pulse of Africa and AGA Enterprises. And today, African social media influencers have made a quick tour to the city of Addis Ababa, and they have visited so many iconic places, such as, for example, Ethiopian Artificial Intelligence Institute, Riverside Projects of Addis Ababa, Addis Ababa International Convention Center, Adwa Victory Memorial Museum, and sport parks and other iconic places in the city. Coming to you, Gemech. I hope the social media influencers from across Africa have made a very productive stay in Addis Ababa, and of course this summit, African Social Media Influencers Summit, will stay till tomorrow, and they're gonna entertain and they're gonna discuss on various agendas, issues such as artificial intelligence, digital technology, monetization in social media, and most importantly, ways of reshaping African narratives. As we said, African narratives has been wrong, has been stereotyped. I mean, African narratives has been, inaccurate and incomplete, and it has been the responsibility of today's generation. It has been the responsibility of writers, journalists like us, bloggers, Facebookers, YouTubers, media personalities, media professionals, social media influencers, to change the stories of Africa, to change the skewed narratives of Africa. And as a part of the summit, African social media influencers, like I said, have visited many places in Addis Ababa today. How did you get their visit, Gamech?
Well, I got visits, a wonderful visit. As we have observed, of course, they enjoyed their visits, their respective visits. Well, starting from Ethiopian AI Institute, Riverside Project, Adwa Victory Memorial Museum, and Addis Ababa International Convention Center and Sport Park. In all these spots, of course, they, we can say, enjoyed and have drawn good lessons, which may have implications for their countries, for their respective countries. And today, well, nothing very serious matter was not entertained, but tomorrow I hope and expect that how do we go about these? As you said earlier, how do we create positive narrations about Africa based on what they have visited today? And at this moment tomorrow, of course, they will be talking about things very much seriously. And how do we go about them? Because these are very serious matters. Changing narrative is not an easy thing, and it is something that requires you a lot of work. And it doesn't come, just in a night. And this has been, going on for quite too long. And now you must be, kind of creative. You must be dealing with the situation in a way that is very much informed. So how do we go about it is the very question that they will be asking themselves tomorrow, I expect. And there will be experts, professionals on these issues that will give them directions, insights into how they go about it. And hopefully government officials, Ethiopian government officials, and maybe respective government officials from the countries of these influencers will also take part. So they will really provide, just the kind of support these influencers need. And so today, just they've had, a visit to these iconic places, as you said earlier. But tomorrow, they just come up. They start, just to engage in the homework, in the assignment, and they'll be talking about very critical matters, and especially how do we succeed in creating African narratives that will benefit Africa in general, that will fight stereotypes that have been going for quite too long until today. And tomorrow will be, just a moment for these influencers to exchange ideas, to exchange insights into how to go about changing African narratives.
Yeah, lots of positive stuffs have been happening in Africa. We see bustling tech hub in Nairobi, Kenya, and we encountered like burgeoning creative industries in Lagos, Nigeria, and we see corridor developments in Addis Ababa, and we have encountered enormous infrastructure developments in Ethiopia, energy infrastructure, for example, green development, for example. We see, for example, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Lots of positive things have been happening in Africa in terms of development, in terms of political development, in terms of economic growth, and so on. We are very much encouraged that out of 10 fastest economies in the world, 6 are found in Africa, and countries such as Cote d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, and Ghana are consistently recording and registering fast economic growth over the past few years. And this is, a monumental achievement in Africa. But such kind of positive and encouraging stories have been downplayed, really downplayed by the negative stories, the negative stereotypes on Africa, and this has to be reversed, and it's going to be the responsibilities of African social media influencers. I mean, this African social media influencers, ASMIS 2026, has brought together more than 200 influential figures, social media influencers from across Africa, and this is going to be a huge opportunity for influencers to network with each other. Yesterday, I was following the conversation that our colleague, reporter Tinsai Gabeo, made with African social media influencers. And one of the influencers from Swatini said, like, network is net worth. Yeah, network is networks. If we effectively translate that network to positive outcomes, the significance of network is immeasurable. So the fact that Africans from across different parts of the continent are connected with each other is a great opportunity for them to strive and to work together to change the current circumstance of Africa, in particular in terms of narratives. Africans, for example, if you ask one Senegalese, more than his neighbors, more than, for example, Ghanaians, he knows a lot about, Londoners, or he knows a lot about London or Paris or Rome, more than his neighbors. For example, if you ask Ethiopians as well, we can talk a lot about Dubai or London or Washington, but we don't talk a lot about our neighbors, such as, for example, Tanzania or Uganda. That shows you the fact that Africans are not connected. Connection, to be connected, to be integrated, demands huge investment, and we need to invest. We need to put lots of effort. We need to put money. We need to put time, and we need to. After all, we need to give focus. I mean, if we are focused, if we are, willing, there is a saying that goes like, if there is a will, there is a way. So we need to show our will in terms of integrating.
External people, institutions, governments, etc., don't have the responsibility to talk about you. the good side
Sorry
of
for
you.
interruption, governments.
Yeah.
We will come back to your idea, but this is African social media influencers visit at Ethiopian sport park. You know, recently we see burgeoning sport park in the city of Addis Ababa. You know, much of the history of Addis Ababa has been, you know, associated with its capacity and its history of hosting political conferences and political summits. But recently, Addis Ababa has been a center of entertainment, a center of sport as well. We have encountered many sports people from Africa and around the world visited Addis Ababa, and this has shown the significance of Addis Ababa in terms of culture, in terms of entertainment. And you know, Addis Ababa has taken initiative, Ethiopia has taken initiative to organize this African social media initiative, and it tells you the fact that Ethiopia has continued to be in the right side of history when it comes to the issue of Africa, the issue of black people. You know, the issue of narrative at this time for Africa is one of the biggest agenda and Ethiopia is entertaining this super important agenda in various platforms, and this really starts from Ethiopian Prime Minister His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed. He has been a proponent, advocate of African unity, and he has been, you know, making a speech about the necessity and imperatives of changing the narratives of Africa. I remember one of his speeches that he delivered at the African Union Summit, and he said that, you know, the world view of Africa is, you know, impacted by the negative narratives and stereotypes on Africa. But not only that, you know, international media, global media narratives of Africa not only shape the way the world views Africa, but the way Africans view ourselves. So Ethiopia, starting from the Prime Minister of the country to, you know, media personalities, we are showing, you know, a great deal of commitment and dedication in terms of changing the narratives of Africa, because it all starts from narrative, by the way, governments. You know, you are as big as your thought, governments. For example, if you feel inferior, you're going to be inferior, and you live inferior, you die inferior. But if you know your treasure, if you know your wealth, if you know what you can do, you know, you can utilize your potential, and you can live up to your potential. You can utilize your potential. So to change Africa, the idea, the notion of His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed is to change Africa. We need to start from changing the narratives of Africa. We need to show the potential of Africa. And such kind of sport parks, for example, are signs that Africa can do, Ethiopia can do. So this will be, I think, a good note for African social media influencers. You know, we have seen such kind of sport parks in Europe or America, but recently we are glad that we are observing such kind of beautiful sport parks in Addis Ababa, and this is going to be one of the unforgettable memory that the African social media influencers will take to their respective country governments.
Yeah, this Addis Ababa Sport Park, as you have seen, it is, you know, a full package. Look, you know, we have fields, football field, we have bicycle lanes, and you can also play basketball, volleyball, etc. And it is as big as anything. And you have, you know, sections where separate games, you know, can take place in different spots of this park. And obviously it is as huge as you can see it, and it allows people, young people especially from the surrounding areas, to come over and play here, play on this ground. That's a very good thing, and this park, you know, can replicate, you know, elsewhere in the city and in the country as well, and maybe in the rest of African countries as well. And well, this requires, of course, huge investment. It's not easy to build, you know, such an infrastructure.
Sure.
But if there is collaboration, and especially if, say, those people who can afford to contribute for such a ground engage in supporting, in giving a hand, then we can realize, you know, this sport elsewhere in Addis Ababa and in the country as well. Now, sport is, you know, something that we cannot ignore, as I mentioned it earlier, and in experts in the field critically, you know, just tell you that if schools don't have, these facilities, then
Yeah.
the health of the school community, gets compromised, and people who engage in sport activity, just will live longer, and this is, scientifically proven. And especially when people get, older, they need to engage in exercise. They need these facilities to kill, just the fat that possibly could lead them to, for example, blood pressure, high blood pressure.
Exactly.
And these kinds of facilities can really be replicated further in Addis Ababa.
Yeah,
Ethiopia, may not be limited with this facility. This is a very good model for both the city and the country, and for anyone, who happens to visit it.
That is absolutely beautiful. That's definitely fantastic. As you can see, African social media influencers are enjoying with football as well, and that's really quite an amazing thing for them to visit. And as you said, Gamachis, this allows residents of Addis Ababa to live a very dignified life, and of course they deserved it. And it shows the commitment and dedication of the government. It is not an easy task. It is really a tough assignment, which needs a huge investment, and the government has put a significant amount of investment to the construction, to the building of such kind of spectacular sports parks. And Gamatis, as we are approaching to the news hour for Pulse of Africa, I think we need to wrap up our conversation. And today we have been making conversation, and we have been, making live stream of African Social Media Influencers Summit since morning. And African social media influencers have visited enormous iconic places, such as, for example, Ethiopian Artificial Intelligence Institute, Riverside, Adwa Victory Memorial Museum, Addis Ababa International Convention Center, and finally Sport Park. And this is really a great experience for African social media influencers. And I wish they're gonna promote, I hope that they're gonna promote such developments in Addis Ababa. And of course, the major purpose of, taking them to such visit is to give them a glimpse into Addis Ababa, because we say that Addis Ababa is the center, the political and diplomatic center of the continent. And the ASMIS, African Social Media Influencer Summit 2026, is still going on, and tomorrow they're gonna sit down for in-depth discussion of things such as artificial intelligence, digital technology, and most importantly, African narratives, the issue of changing African narratives. And as we wrap up and conclude our discussion, Gamatis, let us leave our audience with a powerful African proverb that goes like, until the lion starts to speak about itself, the story of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. Let me repeat this super important African proverb. Until the lion starts to speak about itself, the story of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. What does it mean to Africa? Until Africa starts to speak about itself, the story of Africa will always glorify the colonizers and neo-colonizers. And it's going to be the responsibility of each and every one of us to shape and reshape the story and narratives of Africa. Dear viewers, many thanks for watching us, and our news hour is coming up. Our news presenter is in front of us, and she's going to join you. But with regards to our live coverage of African Social Media Influencer Summit, we end up here, and the news hour is coming up. Many thanks for watching, and stay tuned with the Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa.